Hi, everyone. We are on Wednesday in the week of love, the last week of our Advent devotional. I'm Janelle, and this is my husband, Byron. Today we are reading Psalm 139, 1 through 5 in the NIV version. You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, Lord, you know it completely. You know me and you hem me in behind and before, and you lay your hand upon me. So we are talking about this because we chat a little bit before we start talking. Otherwise, this video would just be chaotic to say the least. And I was like, so, like, what should we focus on here? And we were talking about just the idea of how hard, how sometimes it's harder to love someone when you know them really well because you know all of their faults. And I was thinking that with the first question that I asked, did you know God knew you so personally? And there's a couple different things that you can, well, there's a lot you can pull out of that. But if you're looking at one, to know someone personally, you've sought that person out. Right? Like it's not just someone you can't casually get to know someone deeply. You have to actively go seek that person out. You have to spend time with them. You have to ask them questions, have good conversations. You have to go through stuff with them, to really understand who they are and to know them deeply. I mean, even thinking about, when I sit and when I rise, you perceive my thoughts from afar. I mean, first of all, we're obviously never going to know someone the way Jesus knows us.
Right.
But that's a very personal relationship to know where someone is and what they're doing. I mean, we've been married for 12 years right now. And I would say we have a pretty good, like, I think Byron could guess a lot of times, like, where I am in my day. I mean, maybe not exactly what I'm doing, but kind of had a general idea of what's going on just because we've been together and he knows my general day to day schedule. But some random person is clearly not going to have any idea. And then my friends would probably not, they would be guessing, but they would have no idea. I mean, my work schedule can even change. So it's this really deep relationship. And so there's that first is God seeking us out to know us so deeply, right? Of course, he's God, so he knows all things, but there's that over and over again in the Bible is God seeking us out. And then there's how he loves us so much, even in the depth of that knowledge.
Yeah.
Because I think when, like, being married for so long, there's a growth of love between us. But then there's also that very hard to let go of, checklist in the back of your head that's like, oh, you forgot to do that again. Byron, that's what Byron thinks. um, but God loves us in all of our faults,
Yes. Yeah, totally. There was a practice that I heard of where if you want to practice loving someone deeply, choose someone that you don't really know that well because it's much easier to share and show that person like unconditional love, like God. And it gets harder the more and more you know someone. And God knows us fully. He has full knowledge of who we are. And despite that, He keeps seeking us out. He keeps trying to be in relationship with us. And He even sent His Son to then die for us, knowing that we were His enemies and that some would not accept Him. But for all of those, but to Him, it is so worth it because of how much He loves us. And that we would then choose and seek relationship back with Him. And it it makes it even more worth it in my heart to be like, wow, God, I can choose to love and show love towards God, and God is feeling love back. And like he loves that I have accepted his gift, and that he sees it as a jewel. Like he sees every good act as a jewel on your neck, like when song. But it's just such a good thing to be able to share in that love that God has for us, and then to share it back to Him and then to those around us.
Yeah, and you saying that, like the jewel in your neck, it also made me think of the word delight.
Yeah.
Like, one of my main things when I was looking at these verses for this week and the point I wanted to, because love is such a big concept to get across. And I was sitting there and I was like, well, part of love do we need to know? And I think it's how deeply God loves us, because we do have these daily experiences in our lives. And unfortunately, I think most of us can end up being jaded.
Yeah.
And we miss out on what it really means to love. And some of that can be because we have not experienced true love here on earth. Like, what does it mean, to fully love someone? It's hard because we're broken human beings. Like, we're gonna hurt each other. But God's love is unfailing and God's love is unconditional. And it's like, how do you even understand that concept? But when you look at this verse, Psalms in general, but is understanding that God, when he looks at you, he delights in you, that you discern my going out and my lying down. You're familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, which I have to tell you that verse has over and over again convicted me, where I start a thought in my head and I'm like, oh boy, woo, let's just rein that one back in. But you hem me in behind and before, you lay your hand upon me. This is such a comforting verse to look at how God views us and how he interacts with us on a daily basis. And just thinking about like God's love as being ever present, ever expanding, ever growing, but that also that love means that he delights in us, that he looks at us not as, oh, here's what they've done wrong again, but oh, here's where they've done right. Here's where they've accepted me. Here's where they've returned my love. He is delighting in us, not looking down with that like angry eye. And I think that's what a lot of times people think of, like this, God looking down, like, oh, what are they going to do next? And it's like, that's not what he's doing. He's thinking, what could they do next? What's their potential? Where's their growth? What right places have, like, what right choices have they made?
Yeah.
So that is Wednesday in the week of love, Psalm 139, 1-5. We'll see you guys tomorrow.